Welcome to Dad's Next Project.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dad's Next Project, a podcast. Today I have with me Mr. Damon Hart. Came all the way from Florida? Jersey?
San Diego.
Oh, so
yeah.
short trip today.
Yeah, short one
short
today.
trip today. All right. So, but Damon's here to talk dad stuff with us today. So, introduce yourself a little bit to the audience and, tell us about yourself.
Dude, well, thanks for having me, D. Couldn't be more stoked. Yeah, I am a dad, and what people know me the best as probably is Mr. Foxy. My company's Foxy Home Buyer. We buy residential real estate. We've been doing that over 10 years in Florida, and yeah, man, I just really what I do. I tell people when I run into them or anyone ever asks me, I just help people make money in real estate. Residential real estate, small commercial. And I'm really great because I've been in it so long at just finding what the right deals are and then putting people in front of those.
Putting people in front of deals.
Yep.
So you're helping people.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, right?
For sure. That's how you stay in business.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Cool, man. So and then you've got the one son who I've seen in your social stuff. You've got him involved in the business pretty good too there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about your kid and
man, he's just the best. That's all I can say, man. It's my son. He's almost 18, so he's gonna be he's a young man. We had we were lucky enough to have him when we were like in our mid-20s, and like my wife always says it too. Like he's just been great since the time we got him. He's just a really great kid, kind heart, and I really believe I heard a good friend say this when you have kids, your job is just not to mess them up because they come out perfect. And that was kind of our philosophy. We just wanted to kind of keep them, as good as God made them. We want to keep them like that. So
yeah, right. Because that's when they're fresh out the womb. That's they're perfect. There's it doesn't get any better than that part.
Yeah.
I mean, it does, but it doesn't all at the same time, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Your kids are those are your babies, man, for sure.
Yeah, no. So, just the one kid, almost 18. Man,
Yeah.
I can't even. My kids are 5 and then the youngest one's 7 months now. So 18. I can't even imagine that. It goes by quick, huh?
It will go like that, brother. It will. But along the way, there'll be some slow spots. Like I remember, like when he was firstborn, it's like, because they're babies, everything revolves around you. But when they get to like teenage years, I'm more like I'm like a supervisor. You know what I mean? Make sure nobody gets hurt.
Yeah.
And you don't I don't know, burn the place down. Pretty much.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. Don't burn the house down.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah, so that's what it's been mostly.
Nice, man. So 18 years, you got a lot of experience then and growing a good individual. What's that like? Just doing the values and maintaining that good kid, and setting them up for success in this climate.
So, man, I would say first and foremost, like I think we got lucky, my wife and I, right? And I always say, like, that's like our saying around the house, like, it never hurts to be lucky because we had good family support, right? Like they say it takes a village. Dude, I wholeheartedly believe, especially in the early years when me and my wife were just married, trying to figure things out together, and then we have this other human being that we're responsible for and all this other stuff around us. We got our dreams, we got our our goals. Like if we didn't have my wife's family and my family and then all the other friends and family around us, I don't think we make it together, and I certainly don't think that we are the parents that we are together too.
Yeah.
So
Having that family, the support and that dynamic and the togetherness from just across the board.
Yeah, 100%, man. And like, and I get it. Not everyone has that luxury, right? Because of whatever thing, maybe dynamics change or what have you, or maybe just choices. But I will say this: if you want to give your your kid the best opportunity, in my opinion, it's with both parents, and if you can have some extended family around you too, because that way you're not doing all the teaching.
Yeah.
You know, the teaching comes from examples. You know, it's not so much what you say to kids, is what they see and what you do that they pay attention to.
Oh, yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah, no, like I said, my oldest is 5, so I know every single one of my bad habits at home, every one of them, because she does it too.
She does it too. And then you see that and you're just like, oh.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, that one's me.
Yep, 100%.
Babe, that one's you.
Yep.
Like we need to fix that.
Yeah. And who knows? She might grow up with it, and that might be, if that's the worst thing, like but as long as they're kind and decent hearted people, and they understand that it's not all just about what we can take from the world also. You know, it's like what we're here to give.
Yeah, and that's one of the because both my kids are little girls. So like, obviously the 7-month-old no one knows yet, but the 5-year-old, like, she is so pure of heart and can just be so, loving and caring about so many things and whatever, and trying to embrace that, right? Especially with my professional background, because I see the worst in society constantly, and it has desensitized me a little bit to some of the, like, she's bringing some of that back into my life, which is cool.
Like the beauty and
because you see enough of the bad, like the good's like, oh yeah, there's that, but there's also this, right? But she is bringing that, and the positivity and the forward outlooking, and just some of those emotional vulnerabilities that she has right now. It's great. But trying to for my side of things, trying to embrace that and foster it, and like, 'cause sometimes I don't understand it. Like, not anymore. I'm like, I'm so disconnected.
Sure.
But yeah, like, all we want to raise great, like, loving, caring, kind kids. Yeah. Like that's how we grow as a society, is we bring that loving and that kindness, and and you've got a similar situation that I do. Being your wife is Chinese, my wife's Native American. We've got two very contrasting cultures of family dynamics and just perspectives coming into that, raising our kids.
Sure.
Like, how is that for you? 'Cause
man, I say in the beginning it was a little challenging, because you're so used to what you know and your culture, and maybe it's true for, like, even if you're not from a mixed race family or what have you, you have your own way of doing it. Your family did it this way, and then you guys come together, and now you're like, okay, but I didn't grow up like that. So in the beginning, it's a lot of assimilation. Like, you're trying to figure it out and see, okay, which one works. What I found is that after a while, and I have to admit, I'm a stubborn person. Like, once I set my mind on something, that's how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I would say what life has taught me over time is that the sooner you get to understand that it's not just like your way being the only way and the right way. It's also, it's okay for people to look at their way of doing things differently too. And put it this way, it's okay for you to not like or understand what it is that they do, but also get that it's not wrong. It's just different. And it took me a while to figure that part out, but I feel like, as your kids, if we're talking about relationships, like, they get it. They get it way faster. They're like, mom has this reaction, dad has this reaction to the same exact situation. What do I side more? I find that my son sometimes sides more with my wife on certain things, and with me on others, and that's just who he is. And later on in life, I think it makes him a better rounded person, a well-rounded person.
Right? Yeah, because what we're hoping is that they take the better aspects, whether different cultures or whatever, from the parents. We're hoping that they take the better aspects of each of us. And that's how they become who they are as an adult, right?
For sure.
We don't want them to be like, oh,
we don't know. We don't know 100% how it's gonna turn out. But look, it's like good or bad. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know what's right for a person, but I'm compelled to think that most of the time if we give our kids love, attention,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of guidance, they're gonna be all right, man. Like, I hate to make it really simple,
Yeah.
but that's been my formula. And how did I know? Because when I was growing up, my biological dad, like, I didn't see him since I was probably like 1 or 2 years old. I guess whatever the story is, I just didn't see him. And I was fortunate enough to have a stepdad that was around. Like, I grew up, my mom married about 10 years old, and he was always around, and I got to see kind of like how a man interacts and what he does, and I think I was very lucky for that. And I said, when I have a kid, whether it's boy or girl, I just know the things that I would want to have from my parents, that maybe they just fell short, or maybe they didn't think to do it. They were just doing whatever they're doing. I was like, I want to do this for my kids, and that's been my recipe. And that, to me, I felt like has worked out really well for myself and my wife. I think my wife would look at what our family and say, you know what, we've done all right.
Yeah.
We've done all right, especially around raising a kid.
Yeah. No. So we have a couple of mutual acquaintances who have been in some groups you're involved in, and have seen your boy around, and maybe met him or at least seen him interact with people, and they are people who are absolutely, like, the ones I know are absolutely blunt about, like, their opinions of other people, right? Like, yeah, that's a good dude, that's not a good dude, whatever. Okay. And all of them have been like, yeah, dude, Damon's kid is, like, he's professional, he holds himself well, he's interacting with people in these rooms like he's meant to be there, right? Sure. Like he's not cowering, he's not hiding in the corner, he's like, he just introduces himself and does this thing. So from what little knowledge I have of how your boy's turning out, I would say you're doing an all right job.
Thank you, man.
A pretty darn good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that's all we really want, right?
That's it.
We want our kids to be able to enter a room, talk to people, have those interactions, be a decent human being, and be able to take that and live their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Like, what do you think? Like, where do you think somebody? Because you talk to a bunch of dads, right? I'm always curious about this. Like, where do you feel like dads or parents sometimes they go astray a little bit? Like, where do you think it kind of breaks down and stuff starts to get rough? From what you've heard?
From most of my discussions so far, like, have been with dads who have a fairly positive vibe in their parenting, or at least in the conversation we've had.
Yep.
Speaking from my own personal experience, and then some of what the dads I interact with on a daily basis, I would say that overthinking things, like overcomplicating whatever scenario we're in with our kids, or that thing we're trying to teach them, right? Because we're all adults, right? Like, we have our ingrained way of looking at things, and then if we overthink how to handle a situation with, like, my 5-year-old, right? I have to remind myself, one, I need to not overthink pretty much everything, right? Like, that never leads to a positive outcome, right? You get too far in your own head, it's not going to work out great anyway. But especially with working with the younger kids, like, it's literally the simplest answer, right? And I think that's where we get caught up as parents, is because we're taking our perspectives as adults and trying to work through whatever with our kid as adults, and we're not like, okay, no, like, they're a kid, like, and this isn't even a problem. It's a problem in my head,
right?
It's not a problem to them.
Yeah.
We just need to tweak. It's a tweak. It's like, hey, baby, maybe that's not the most appropriate response to that, right? Like, it's not scream and yell and whatever. But of course, if they're screaming and yelling, guess who they're learning that from?
Right.
Us, right?
Right. 100%.
So I would say that the overthinking things and not just going for the simplest answer, as we're trying to grow our kids and work through things we see as problems that they don't know any different.
Sure. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing that, because I can look at being a parent, and obviously I know personally, no one does everything right, especially myself, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing that I've done, that I've tried to do as much as I could, is just say, you know what, like, I'm sorry. You know, like, I think it goes a long way with kind of curing whatever goes on, because I don't know, like, the times where I remember resenting something that my parents did is because I was just like, yo, you know, I'm still, even though I'm your kid, I'm still a person, and you hurt my feelings, and you never apologized.
Yeah.
And the times where we did, you know, where parents were like, hey, you know, my bad, I messed up. It's like, I got over it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Well, and the times when you're like, you know, that's my bad, you know, I'm supposed to be setting that example for you. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
recognizing that, like, I just did something I wouldn't want you doing as an individual or as an adult. Like, I wouldn't want to see you treating other people that way. Like, I'm acting out of frustration or whatever.
Right.
Like, that was not the proper way to do that. I'm sorry. Like, you know, and those go so far.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, the times you do that and don't say you're sorry, especially when they start getting older, that's going to be what they remember.
Right. And they're
They'll
not
be
going
like,
to tell
yeah.
you.
Yeah, it's going to be, you know, they're going to be 25 hanging out with their buddies and be like, oh, my dad was an a-hole, because you were an a-hole twice. You weren't an a-hole his entire life. You were an a-hole twice. And that's, no, my dad's an a-hole. You don't want to make him mad, right?
You're right about that, man. You're right about that. And you know, time will tell, man. It like, parenting is one of those things. It's like, like, you won't know, and I don't think you'll ever know. Like, it gradually, the truth will reveal itself on how well you did, right? So up until this point, I feel blessed, and I feel honored the work that we put in, and he's definitely, I think he's fantastic. But I would say this, I also believe that, you know, for parents, especially dads, man, like, you got to be your kid's biggest fan. Got to be your kid's biggest fan, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like, I had that growing up, and I feel like that gave me the ultimate confidence to know, like, no matter what, you know, like, number one, just think of fans in general, right? Like, when you have fans, like, people that, you know, like, the Suns are in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
What are fans? They're freaking loyal, right? They're always going to talk about, like, your best redeeming qualities.
Yeah, they're
like,
your best hype group.
right?
Yeah.
Right? They're going to talk about what's possible for you. Yo, we're going to win it this year, you know? And if anyone says anything, they're going to come what? They're going to come defend you. They got your back, right?
Yeah.
But fans also, they don't come without no criticism. You know? Fans will let you know, like, if we're going towards this, if you're out, they're going to tell you. And they tell you in a way that some fans, right? Depends on what kind of fan you are. But, like, some fans will protect you and say, hey, look, like, this is where I think you got to go, and work to redirect you. It's all out of love. It's all out of, you know, the team winning, which is the family. Right? But, like, that's the other part of, I think, you got to be your biggest fan for your kids, because that's what's going to allow them to win at life. And that's all, I think, when we talk about all these different things, that's what you want for your kids, is for them to win.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. You want them to live the life they want to live, right?
Yep.
And that's the win.
Yep.
Right? My kid grew up happy and healthy. They were able to transition into adulthood.
Yep.
And, like, they're not struggling. They're living the life they want to, because we gave them the tools to do that.
Exactly.
Right? Like, we didn't make them do it. We didn't force them, no, you're going to do this, you're going to do that.
Yep.
Like, you just give them the opportunity and support them in everything.
And doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's all you can do, bro. That's really it. Yeah. And that's awesome you said that, because I think every dad would say the same thing for the most part, right? Everybody's different, but I think most dads, that's all we want. And then the other thing is, like, you want to protect your babies, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you want to protect your daughters, you want to protect your sons, you want to give them as much, because I still think we have that primal part of us that's just like, yo, once I let you out, like, there's dangers out there.
Yep.
You know? and I want to make sure that you come back or you get wherever you got to go safe without not being, without being available anymore, dying. So it's like that's the thing that I think we all got to make sure too. Like that's still a real thing for dads, and I don't know if people talk about it enough, but like my kid is like I shouldn't even call my kid my son. He's like he's one of the most important people to me, but also to everybody else in my family.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to preserve that for everybody. And that's your dad's responsibility. I don't know about like that's your mom and your dad. That's primarily dad because he's the protector. That's your job to make sure that they have everything they can to be equipped. That's just how I see it.
Yeah, and a little bit of a fine line though too, because you don't want to go overboard.
Of course,
because then they don't
want to do nothing.
They don't do nothing. Yeah,
they're
they
afraid
don't
of
go
everything.
do it because they're afraid of everything.
Yeah, and that's that, and I don't know about you, man, but I'm gonna go a little like out there because I want to know.
Yeah.
But like I just feel like kids now they're a little bit more hesitant and afraid to take the risks. And I wonder if that's like a parenting thing or like a societal thing. But like I don't know. What do you think?
So again, personal experience. It's a parenting thing.
Okay.
Right. So, with my daughter, right? Like, I'm kind of there's aspects where I'm like, yes, no, like don't be afraid, go do that, whatever.
Sure.
And then there's other things that it's my own inhibitions, the things that like I have been afraid to do in the past, and or situations I wouldn't necessarily put myself in. That there's no harm, right? There's no physical harm. No one's gonna get hurt. No one's gonna right. But it like social engagements and some of the head and see and that stuff, or like with animals, like you go to the petting zoo or whatever. If you're afraid of the llama, don't tell your kid not to go pet the llama because there's probably nothing wrong with petting the llama, but now you're putting your fears on your kid. She's never gonna pet that llama, right? So if you're afraid to put yourself out there and either do something like this, right?
Sure.
Put yourself out in the public eye, the public profile, which I can tell you until about 3 months ago, this would not have been a thing, right?
Sure.
So this is definitely out of my comfort zone, and part of why I'm doing some of this stuff is to show my daughter, like, do the things that make you uncomfortable, right? Because those are the things that are going to make you grow.
100%. Dang it.
But and I'm trying to translate that aspect into most aspects into just the things we do on a regular basis, like, because I don't want to see her get hurt. Professionally, I've seen a lot of injured kids and sick kids and whatever. So it breaks my heart. And I don't want to see her do that because I know it's going to be even harder because she's mine, right?
Of course.
She's my little girl. But I need to back it off a little bit. So I would absolutely say it's a parenting thing, but it's our own inhibitions and our own fears and that we're putting on our kids because the kids don't know any different.
No.
Right? Like there are things that they're going to pick up on that are inherently dangerous, and that's our natural abilities to do that, and we need to let that happen and not push.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that too because I can certainly understand why a parent would, right? You want to just protect them. But I get from what you're telling me, like that part, that just being aware of it is great too, because that's uncomfortable, right? Like to have to look inside and be like, oh, yo, dude, like, I mean, for me, like I'm looking at, what is it that I'm afraid of,
Right.
Bro, I would say podcasts to a certain extent was something for me too. And just being like, outward, like, hey, I'm here. This is what I do. That to me was, I can tell. And like with him, I encourage him to do that too in what he does. So
yeah, put yourself out there and do the things that make you uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And then like, so you guys like to surf, right?
He likes to surf.
Yeah. Okay, so that's not from you.
Yeah, I can't take credit for it. What I am, I'm gonna take credit for is I was the guy that had the foresight to be like, hey, like I think this guy really likes surf. Like he would like a surf lesson. Let me go take him down. I was that guy.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
you got him introduced and you
Uh-huh.
right. Okay. So again, something maybe you don't like. But hey, you know what? This is something that's worth trying.
Yep.
Right?
100%. Yep. And it's funny you talk about that stuff. There's in surfing. I'm very grateful for the sport of surfing. There's been so many times that I've had, and I know there's more coming. That it's so uncomfortable, like sharks. Like it's the
Yeah.
first thing people say.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like sharks, like it's like your primal fear.
Mm.
Well, dude, like he's been in water with sharks, been in water with like not like great whites, but like
Yeah.
real sharks
Yeah.
swimming around. Like he's in surfing with them,
Yeah.
and like big waves, like possibility of drowning and all this other stuff. Like, but you just what I've come to embrace is just like this is his life, and you just gotta. I think Jordan Peterson said it. Like, let them take risks, but like safely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let them take the risk that they want, and then give them the best equipment or whatever advice that you can, and then let them go.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm 100% on board with that one. Right.
Yeah.
Like, you want to do this thing? Okay. Yeah, it's inherently dangerous, but we can set you up for all of the things to be safe at it.
Yeah, man.
Like my dad got me into racing go-karts and motocross and stuff like 10 or probably younger than 10 for the go-karts. So I started
Whoa.
racing motocross at like 12 years old. So inherently dangerous,
Oh yeah.
but we made sure I had all the equipment to make sure I did it safe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if either my kids wants to get into something that, whether it be surfing or motocross or racing cars or whatever that is, if I can support them to do that, I will make sure that they do it in the way that it's been found to be safe, right?
Skydiving.
Yeah,
Have
skydiving.
Two parachutes.
Yeah, always have a backup, right?
That's it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, dude, I think that us as parents, if we let our fears get in the way again,
Yeah.
to those types of activities, like skydiving, on my bucket list, right?
Yeah.
Not something I'm running out the door to do today,
Yeah.
but like
I think
when my
they
daughter's old enough
I
and
think
she's
they have
like,
some
hey.
back in Pierre.
They do, yeah. We could throw a rock out of this studio and probably hit somewhere. If
What time is it?
yeah, like we could probably get it in today. we can bring.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. I
no.
think we're going blank here because we both don't really want to do it.
No,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's me,
But
you
yeah,
too.
no, we could throw a rock and find a skydiving place from where we're at right
Right
now
on.
without much problem. But I don't think either of us is running out the door to do it today.
Nah.
Maybe next time you're
We
in the
gotta
valley,
work-
we'll
we gotta
figure
work
that
up
out.
to that. We gotta work up to that one. Work up to that fear for sure. But yeah,
But same thing, right? Like just because we're afraid of it doesn't mean we can't let our kids do it.
nah. You're
Right? We
about
just
that.
we just need to make sure we know, the safe way to do it.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. And yeah, dude, I love the idea of like having dads come out and talk because, not for nothing, like most guys aren't gonna be sitting around talking about their feelings, right? But
Nah.
I think what this platform is doing for people at the very least is giving a little bit of a platform for dads to be able to say like, yeah, no, I really do care.
Yeah.
Like this really does matter to me because every dad I know, your kids and your wife, if you're married, that's the most important things you have. Like forget the cars, forget like this stuff doesn't mean anything when you put it against your family.
Right. Yeah.
know what I'm
Like
saying? That's
I have a
extras.
positive relationship with my significant other. I am raising smart, healthy, respectable kids.
Yep.
Outside of that, right?
The rest is
I could
all-
be a billionaire and have douchebag kids, 7 ex-wives,
Yep.
whatever, right? Like that list says more about me than the fact that I've, made $1 billion.
correct. And I think most people know that, right? Like if we're honest and we take
Yeah.
an honest assessment, we all know that.
Oh, we do, but society doesn't. Society doesn't measure a man by like how he raised his kids and his family dynamic, right? To a point,
Yeah.
like like divorces and some of that stuff. It's a very small part about how we're looked at in society,
For sure.
right? In society, it's how do we provide,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Is he out there doing it, and his family's fed, and they're taken care of, and they're going to good schools and all that stuff, like
Yep.
that's the society output,
Yep.
right? They don't, not the emotionally vulnerable, guy who's got 2 little girls that, like he's got to raise to be good women and actually set the example of what a man should be. So when they're out and, they're looking for a significant other, they know how they should be treated.
For sure.
Because you've treated your wife like a queen, like that's not how we're looked at. It should be. That's the aspect we should have. And then the vulnerability thing, like, like I've been fortunate and had a bunch of guys being willing to be on the show and kind of open up a little bit and talk family and dynamics and some struggles and stuff, but it's not the norm.
Yeah.
And I think we need to change that, which is what we're
What
doing
it's
here.
all about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, man. I mean, I could think of like situations for sure where you think like, especially early on, like even when you become a dad, the one thing that I was super afraid of, before we even married, because my wife, we got pregnant. She got pregnant before we even got married. And I love my wife, but it's just like the fear of being a dad. When I first found out she was gonna have a baby, I was just like, whoa, like, no, you're not. Like, whoa. I don't know what, because I didn't know. I had no frame of reference for that.
You don't.
Like I didn't know who I was gonna be, how I was gonna do it, and it scared the crap out of me. And yeah, and I can think back, my mom was the one who actually told me. She's like, look, you might be scared and all that stuff now, but she's like, when you see that little person in your arms and, you sit with them and you tell them like, you'll be there, it'll all work out, and don't worry, you'll figure it out. And that's, I think, the hardest part about fatherhood is, and especially in the information age, is you think like you have to know everything, and if you Google it and you don't have the right answer, you feel like you're stupid. Nah, bro, this ain't what do you call it? It's not a test.
No.
Like, you'll figure it out, and you get to make mistakes along the way, and you get to correct yourself, and then eventually maybe you find information or another person to help you out, but you'll figure it out. And I'm super grateful for something like your show and just that whole conversation, man, for like giving dads a place to feel like, yo, like I'm not alone and I'm not crazy, like I'm doing the right thing.
Yep. Yeah, and that's it, right? Is the guest, it's open, like dad is the requirement, right?
Yeah.
I know it's stepdad, bio dad, foster dad. Like
Right.
if you are in that role in your family dynamic, right? I don't care if it's your nieces and nephews, but you're the strong, father figure,
For sure.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's all essentially the same, right? Like how you need to go about carrying yourself and working through those things. So like the requirement is dad, right? That's it. And I don't care what your background is. I don't care what you do professionally. Like, are you a dad? Are you a positive influence in your family? And are you willing to come and talk about it? Because you're going to say something that resonates with someone listening to this at some point, right?
Sure.
That maybe the last guest, wasn't their cup of tea. That's fine. Maybe the last couple weren't. But like you or the next one, they're like, oh, okay, that one really hits home for me, which is why I've got such a wide net open for this podcast, is because I want to have those conversations, right? Not only do I learn with every time I talk to somebody about, fatherhood and perspective and that stuff, but like it's that open forum to where, that dad who thinks he's the only one going through problem X with his kids, right? You're not.
Yeah, that's the key.
There's hundreds, if not thousands, of us dealing with that same problem every night, but we don't talk about it because we're dudes and we just kind of
You go back to work.
Yeah, I'm just all right. Yeah, and this is a problem I got to work through. I'll figure it out.
Yep.
Right, but we're not the only ones doing it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
That's what we're all about here right now.
Love it, man. Yeah, this is powerful for sure. Yeah, and the fact that you wanted to and just starting this, man, I think is just fantastic. When I just heard it and I saw Fuad and one of your past guests, and I was just like, man, I gotta be on this. Just to not so much for me, but just to be like in the conversation is what I was thinking. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like you think about, okay, yeah, here's a podcast I could share, but it wasn't to me. It's like you just coming here and hearing that compliment when people say like, oh, your kid's fantastic. That it's not. I wouldn't say it's like an ego boost. It's more like it's a gratification.
Yeah.
Right. To say like, hey,
Yeah.
we did something. We did something right, and you know that to me that's all we're all looking for in anything that we're doing. Like if you have a business, you want people to say like, hey, I really appreciate the product or the service.
Yeah.
You know, and family, you want your wife to be like, hey, I really appreciate you.
Yeah. With kids, you want people to be like, yeah, you know, your kid was so nice and professional and like well mannered and like they're killing it. Like they're into all these things. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Like you're doing great. You're doing great.
And all
Something we don't tell each other enough.
Yep.
Right?
And all I'm gonna say is thank you. Thank you very much. And as are you, for sure.
Yeah. So we touched on this briefly when we were kind of talking before. I kind of wish we started rolling the mics a little sooner because we started off with some great conversation. And you know, you having a son that's almost 18, like you're in a realm that I'm not familiar with. But again, will resonate to others, and will help me in the future probably. Okay. But like keeping that positive attitude and, you know, positive self view and all of that with the way or the prevalence of social media nowadays. You know, we touched a little bit on that. So from your perspective, you know, with a teenage son, he's 18, like that's prime social media year, or almost 18. That's prime social media years. Like, how are you, you know, as a father kind of, you know, making sure that he doesn't let that bring him down?
Well, like I was taught, first and foremost, I don't think you can tell anybody anything, especially younger people. You can't tell them shit unless you're doing it.
Yeah.
So if I'm gonna tell him, hey man, don't spend your day on social media, I gotta be that example also, right? So that's the first thing I start with is like I minimize, like I'm only on social to do promotion or something else that has a purpose, and then I'm off, and then I'm spending time with them, right? And then the next thing is like I encourage him to just, and I do a lot of talking. Like that's just my what do you call it, love language or whatever. I'm just a talker, bro.
Yeah.
And I just know what resonates with him is just spending time with him, you know, like, you know, showing him the affection personally. It goes that shows him that I care. So that's the stuff that I look to pour into. If I'm around, I spend time at the beach. I'm hanging out with him. We're watching stuff together. We're talking, you know, sharing ideas, giving them things. And I'm not always. And here's the other thing. I think you can be your kid's biggest fan.
Yeah.
And not always be their friend.
Yeah.
Like my son is like almost like he is my best friend, but he's one of my best friends. It's like one of the people I love the most.
Yeah.
But he's also my son.
Yeah.
I gotta guide him. You know, it's like you have that relationship with it's my responsibility to help you get where you gotta go. And I think sometimes too, it's a balancing act, because with social, I feel like you have the perspective to know what life wasn't like. What life was like without social media, and they don't.
Yeah,
so
we're running out of.
Yeah, so
no one after us is gonna know what it's like to not have constant content.
Exactly. So it's like you have to be empathetic, and then you also have to tell them like, hey, give them an alternative. Like, here's something else you could do, because we know the perils of just constantly being stimulated and always comparing yourself to everything else. Like that's a miserable ass life.
Yeah, I remember when like when there was a billboard with someone that had a certain body figure or whatever on it was a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you can't do that. That's shaming or whatever. Like, oh, you're gonna set all the. But now, like You're scrolling and it's just constant.
nonstop.
Yeah, like, oh man, six pack, six pack, six pack, six pack. You know, like,
Yeah,
yeah,
and you got degrees of it too. Like yeah, and we all have lived long enough to understand. Like I think sometimes society drives in a certain direction that we all don't understand, and it's up to us personally as families, like nuclear families, to decide what it is that is important to us. For me, it's like I think above everything else, like you just want to be as kind as you can to people, and just I always said just pay attention because you're gonna ultimately have to make that decision, and that's something that I feel like you can ingrain in your kids very early. That yeah, you will make the decision. It's okay to make a mistake, but just know what you and give them enough opportunity to be people.
yep.
Like you can't make every decision for your kids and expect them at some point in life to just be like, hey, yeah, I got it from here.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, we've all had that friend or acquaintance or whatever who coddled their kid and sheltered them and didn't,
Yeah.
and then now they're like, they're 20 years old. I can't get them out the house.
Yeah.
Like they
Yeah.
don't do anything without me. Like they won't get a job. They can't drive. Like that does not create a successful human being,
Nah.
right? You have done them no benefit
Yep.
by sheltering them
Yep.
and not allowing them to make their own mistakes.
Yep.
To a point. I mean, you know, when they're younger, you can limit some of that risk, but you don't want to take it all away.
No. How else you gonna learn?
You're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And kids, like, and if you think about it, sometimes I have my moments where, I have my theories about how life used to be because obviously I wasn't alive back then. But I was just like, we're living in the forest somewhere. We're hunting. I'm like, would I tell my kid like, oh no, don't go out there and hunt for food, or don't go out here with daddy? And like, of course you would teach your kids. It's only in modern society we're just like, oh no, it's all right. They're kids. Let them enjoy their life. Nah, bro.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is the time where you learn. Like, okay, I got this job, you have this job, mom has this job.
Yeah.
We got to do this together. Now, I know what you got to do today is not awesome. I know it sucks.
Yep.
But guess what? I got to go do what I got to do to make sure that we move along. So does mom. Mom has to do stuff that she don't want to do either. And I think the earlier that they understand those roles, and it's hard. And I get it that it's hard too, because sometimes families are fragmented, and especially if they're living apart, you have two different households.
Yeah.
Right?
So I was up until about 10 or 12. It was back and forth between mom and dad.
Okay.
Right. So I can 100%. That is the case. Like, fortunately, like their values and how they went about things were fairly similar. So like I wasn't too screwed up that way.
Right.
But it was different, right? Like being with mom and that dynamic and that side of the family and whatever. And then, when I was with dad, it was different. Like the expectations were different. All that. It's different when the family's split.
Yeah.
And I mean, some people will come out of that okay, I think, but I think the nuclear, everybody on the same page, even split parents, right? Be on the same page when it comes to most things.
For sure.
So you're raising your kids without too much conflicting information.
Exactly, because it's going to be confusing, and I get it. Everybody has it different, and circumstances are what they are, and choices. But like to your point, if you can just think about, like, I don't know, if you had two different, like telephone, right? You had two different stories. How hard would it be to figure out which one's which? And then you end up having to go out. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go out to the world. You're going to look for a partner. And then you're going to figure out, like, oh. And that's why I think, it's hard. It's harder than it's ever been because, I don't know when this all happened, but in my opinion, society's made it super cool and in vogue to not really give a crap about families. That's my opinion. Society, not the people.
Yeah.
It just seems like the I don't want to say agenda because I sound conspiracy theorist, but it's just the wave. Let's call it the wave.
Yeah.
It's just not cool to be in a family anymore. And you know, if you're impressionable and things are tough, it's like, yeah, I'd be like, what the fuck would I have a family? It's so much work. I got to deal with somebody else. I got to change. I got to compromise. I got to work together. Forget that. But it would be different if we were both living in a forest somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? If we had forest life going on, it would be really difficult for us to get by.
Right.
You know,
Without
solo,
that
you
family
know?
dynamic.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're off on your own.
Yeah.
You're maybe the neighbors in the half mile down the
Exactly.
riverbank or whatever.
Exactly.
But if you're doing it on your own, back then you weren't making it.
You were not.
Yeah.
Imagine, hey, you know, you guys are all living in the forest, and you're like, all right, the kids with me Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then it's not like it's not like it's like I'm not making fun of it, but it's like imagine if it was that drastic of a change, people would think twice. But like that's kind of how it goes, and I get it. It's just I don't know if I had to do it all over again, I would do it the exact same way because I couldn't imagine doing it the other way. It'd be so much harder to raise a kid and to be a dad.
Yeah.
Were you gonna be a dad by yourself? Now you're a dad. Then you got another, wife. Then you got your ex-wife or ex-spouse, whoever over here with your kid. You don't think she's gonna be jealous of this one over here? Like, it's 10 times harder.
Yeah.
To come to some common ground.
Yeah. I mean, there are people out there who make that work because they have the right mental approach to it.
Sure.
Right. And perspective and mentality and all of that. And, like it's not about me and you. Right. Like we obviously had our differences. So, whatever. Right. But it's about making sure that
this one's okay.
And, there are plenty that make that happen, but I would probably say it's in the lesser percentage of that situation.
I would think so too.
Yeah. All right, Damon. Great conversation today. Yeah, I've got one last question for you.
Shoot.
What does Dad's Next Project mean to you?
Like from the outside, I really didn't know what it meant from just the name. But being here, man, I feel like it's a movement to kind of give dads that space to really be authentic about what really matters to us. And also like to keep in focus, like, what's really next? Like, like for me, I look at like, okay, Dad's next project is like, okay, well, now that we're almost empty nesting, is like, okay, how can I build a better relationship with my wife, and also like the opportunity to maybe expand our family, whatever that looks like in the future.
Yeah.
Like that's it looking in. I didn't, and I feel like that's all come out of just this combo with the project, man, because, dads were always just thinking about what to do next for everybody else, but that would be something that's really for me.
Yeah. What's your next project? What does that look like? Yeah, because almost 18.
Yeah.
What does that look like for him? What does that look like for your household? That is your next project.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that, and I appreciate it very much, man. You having me on and sharing this, and just like you said, doing what you're doing, because it's making a difference. We won't know, kind of like what dads do. We may not know in the short term, but and your dad, I'm sure, would be proud of you.
Thank you
for taking this on. Maybe this was what it was.
Yeah. No, he would have. This would have caught him completely off guard, because this is not anything any of us would have ever expected me to go down this road.
Perfect.
So yeah. Well, thanks for being here, Damon. I appreciate you and your willingness to be on the show. You were, it took us a while to get the recording set up, but you jumped on the opportunity really, really early on.
Yeah, man.
I think I had only released maybe Fuad's episode when we first started talking. So, thank you so much for being here. And if your family does grow, maybe we'll have you back and we could talk about what it's like hitting the reset button.
So looking forward to that, brother. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And then for anybody else that wants to be a guest, dadsnextproject.com. There's a sheet on the website. It also has links to all our socials, or you can DM me on Instagram or Facebook. Daniel Atchison on Facebook and Dad's Next Project on Instagram. So, sweet.
Hello, welcome to Dad's Next Project.